Hello folks, welcome to Maine's Moose Hunter Education course. This course is designed to make sure that Maine's moose hunters are ethical, lawful, and safe while enjoying the outdoors. In this course, we're going to cover the introduction to moose hunting laws and regulations, moose hunting safety and planning your hunt, moose hunting tactics, after the shot and proper meat care, and avoiding potential pitfalls. My name is Ron Fournier. I'm the Recreational Safety Supervisor for the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I oversee the Hunter Education Program, and my role is to make sure that Maine's hunters are safe, ethical, and responsible. Moose hunting safety and planning your hunt. Make sure that you have all these things in place before you start planning out some of the bigger details. You need to look at lodging, and lodging goes fairly quick. You need to look at hiring a Maine guide if that's an option that you want to pursue, because some of the best guides will be they'll be booked pretty quickly. So something you want to be thinking about. And hiring a Maine guide, it will ease a lot of your planning and even places to stay. Everybody has different packages available, so you have to do a little bit of homework. But hiring a Maine guide, it will likely improve your success. It'll take a lot of the work out of the hunt, and probably increase your comfort level, and I think many people seek that as a good opportunity. If you hire a Maine guide, some of them offer lodging packages. There's plenty of outfits just outside of that zone, but you can choose from driving from a place of lodging right down to camping within your zone. You have options of primitive campsites with fire rings, and a privy. Right down to unorganized campsites where you're not allowed to have a fire. One of the things I think about is if I'm in the woods all day hunting and I come back, let's say it's a week that's just really wet and rainy, being in a tent, coming back to a campsite might provide some challenges, so just be prepared and plan for the experience you're looking for. The nice thing about a moose hunt in Maine is you have lots of opportunities to explore some of Maine's wild places and lots of decisions to make, choices on your lodging and the type of experience that you want your hunt to look like. Everything from a fully outfitted guided hunt where they provide meals and lodging, right down to a motel or an Airbnb or renting a camp somewhere, right down to camping close to where you're going to hunt. If you're going to be camping, a couple things you want to be thinking about is obviously the weather. Be looking ahead at what the weather is going to be throwing at you for the week of your hunt. If it says it's going to be clear, plan on cold mornings and rain. And then also the type of campsite. So North Maine Woods has over 350 campsites scattered throughout. And some of them are improved campsites that have a picnic table or fire ring, maybe even a privy or an outhouse. Some may have a water source. And some of them are going to be unimproved, which are basically a gravel pad or a place that people can pull in with a small camper or tent, that sort of stuff. And there may not be any fire pit, there may not be any other amenities, so you need to be planning ahead. Everything from bringing in your own water, planning for going to the bathroom and how that's going to be done, digging a cat hole or using leave no trace principles, as far as doing the right thing on campsites. Again, North Maine Woods, you're on private property and we're a guest when we're on their property. To review North Maine Woods camping policies, visit northmainewoods.org/camping. There's also public lands that have campsites scattered throughout. Camping on Maine's public lands can be a great option. There's a small portion of the White Mountain National Forest, state parks, public reserve lands, and other public lands available. Plan ahead, check site-specific rules and reservation requirements, and camp only in designated or permitted areas where required. Many public lands are first come, first serve, so arriving early may be your best bet. So a couple things you want to be thinking about is the area that you're choosing. Does it require a fire permit? And does it require pre-registration or first come, first serve? Many of these are first come, first serve, which means that if you're going to go up on Saturday afternoon before your hunt, planning on going to a campsite, you may very well find that campsite's already taken and occupied. And you need to have plan B and plan C at the ready, because it could really change the successful setup of your camp. So have some of those things kind of squared away. You may want to leave a day and a half early to secure your campsite, make sure that you have a spot, and again, know where other spots are. When we're at a campsite etiquette and minimum impact camping is really important. You want to make sure that your fire, if you have a campfire, now we've got a big steel campfire ring right here. That's ideal. Many of them are going to be rock or concrete rings. Anytime you kindle a fire, when you leave your campsite or you go to bed for the night, that campfire needs to be out and cold to the touch, which means it needs to be fully doused with water, and you need to make sure that it is completely out. We often do have issues with fires being left unattended. It is a violation, and you know the serious nature of that is that we want to keep Maine woods natural and fire-free. And if I left some hot coals here, it can actually create what's called a duff fire, and it will burn the soils. And it might take several days, but it actually could start a forest fire. So we want to make sure that we fully douse it with water, and knowing that you've got a water source there is going to be important. The other thing we need to think about is our firewood. Now, when you're planning and preparing for your hunt, and you're packing, you know, water and your gear and your hunting rifle and maybe propane for the lantern, one thing you want to leave at home is firewood. Okay, you don't want to bring firewood from one part of the state to the other, or from out of state to the state of Maine. Maine is experiencing invasive species, insects that are getting into certain tree species, and emerald ash borer, Asian longhorn beetle, and others are being spread from human activity by simply moving firewood from one part of the state to another. Now, this might look like an innocent pile of firewood, but if I bought this or found this firewood 200-300 miles away, I have no idea what's living under the bark of that tree. And even though it's going to be going in my fire, just the fact that I'm bringing this here and having it in a different ecosystem, some of those invasive species can get out and start to affect this ecosystem. And we're seeing more and more problem with that. So be diligent about not moving firewood. Another aspect is we want to think about our campsite etiquette, especially at campsites that are more organized, that see a lot of traffic. There's things that we don't often talk about, the human browse line. Okay, so we're at a campsite, we want to find some kindling, some twigs, you want to toast a marshmallow or a hot dog. It's all part of the camping experience, and we understand that. But if I just go over to the nearest tree, even if it's a dead limb, and I start breaking branches off these trees, I'm going to create a human browse line, and it's going to denaturalize the site for future use. Other things we want to be thinking about is, maybe a good fire starter is a nice piece of white birch bark. Well, remember, dead, down, and detached for sticks or anything that you want to use as a fire starter or burn in your fire or use for your marshmallow stick is the key. So dead, down, and detached. If we start stripping bark off of birch trees and other species, the tree's not going to survive. It'll be scarred, and it may take years, but that tree will actually die because you're actually exposing the underlayers, and you're also preventing nutrients to be going up through the bark like it should naturally. Plus, it's an ugly scar that other people have to visualize when they come into that campsite. So just think about leaving the place better than you found it. Pack in everything that you brought, pack out everything that you brought in. And if you show up at a campsite and you find trash from the previous visitors, really, do the right thing and take that out with you as well. And make sure you do a quick micro trash sweep before you leave. This is a white birch right here, and this is a great example of somebody that started by peeling bark. You can see the scars here. And this tree is actually going to die. It's all rotted right here. It's allowing insects to penetrate the trunk. And, it's a good leaner. It's going to end up on someone's car someday in a windstorm. At the very least, it's unsightly, and this tree is not going to survive. So an innocent action of trying to start a fire, one evening, turned into a tree that was permanently scarred and is now going to die. And this tree's, definitely several decades old, and it was definitely preventable. So think about that when you're at your campsite. As you're planning for your moose hunt, we've already covered a lot of the things that you need to be planning for, and one of the most important is lining up your butcher. You want to call a butcher that's going to be close and easy access to get the animal to after the harvest, but also accessible to get the meat after the hunt is over. And you also want to ask them some questions about the types of cuts, how they prepare the different cuts for you, and make sure that they'll take a moose quartered or if they will only take it intact. We strongly encourage you to learn how to quarter a moose in the field to protect the meat. To find a meat processor, you can find it right in our app, or you can find it at mefishwildlife.com/moose meat processing. Make sure that you sign up early and reserve your spot. Another good problem is taxidermy. Now, if you're planning on shooting a bull, this is the first moose you've ever shot, or even a cow, and you wanted to have taxidermy done, you need to be thinking about care for the animal in the field and how you remove it. If you're going to quarter it up, you want to take good care of the hide. If you're going to drag it a short ways, you want to make sure you protect the hide and the fur from creating bare spots and snags and tears in the hide. And make sure that your taxidermist is ready to take your moose. Taxidermists can get very busy during the season, so you want to have that lined up well ahead of time. Another thing you want to be thinking about is, think about the shot that doesn't go as planned. You're tracking a moose that you hit. You know that you hit it. You might have found some blood, and after putting in considerable effort to track that moose, we owe it to the animal to try to be as proficient and ethical and humane as we can. But sometimes a moose goes a little further into the woods than we thought, and if you have exhausted your ability to find a moose that you shot, you might want to be thinking about calling a blood tracking dog. There's a list on the department website, and it's always good to have these phone numbers ahead of time. Don't rely on a blood tracking dog for a lack of being prepared to know how to track, but we also don't want to see a moose go to waste. So it's always a good idea to have some of those phone numbers handy. To find the most current list of blood tracking dogs in Maine, visit mefishwildlife.com/trackers. Okay, so now that you have all of your initial plans in place, you've got your lodging, you've got your butcher lined up, you've decided what type of a hunt, so on and so forth. We need to start thinking about our gear. And this is, again, something you want to be thinking about earlier on. You need to decide what type of equipment you're going to use to harvest your moose. Are you going to use a firearm or archery equipment, including a crossbow? And then be thinking about scheduling time during the summer to practice and be proficient. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But now it's time to start making lists. And there's a lot that goes into a moose hunt, especially if you're camping. You're going to have a whole set of gear that is going to be just camping gear. Tents, sleeping bags, coolers, so on and so forth. And we have a nice list that we've created from a lot of experienced folks that have been on past moose hunts, which might be helpful. My advice is to never check anything off your list until it's physically packed and ready to go in your vehicle, because it's easy to assume that you have it and check it off and then realize that you left something in the garage or in the basement. You're going to have things like your personal medications, contact solution, spare eyeglasses and all that. The way I break it down is I've got a list for my vehicle, a list for things that I need to remove a moose from the woods. That includes sharp cutting knives, game bags, game cart, jet sled, block and tackle, so on and so forth. And then you're gonna have lists for your kitchen. So if you're camping, Coleman stove and extra fuel, and things like a can opener can be kind of a showstopper. With your lists, you're going to have things like your personal gear. What do you need for the week? Camp clothes. What do you need for your hunt? Your hunting gear, rain gear. A good pair of mud boots, something that's comfortable and broken in, is going to be really important. I can hike in these all day, on gravel roads and trails, and then if I get into water features, I'm keeping my feet dry. Allows me a little bit more freedom to explore some areas that might be muddy or wet. But having several pairs of boots is also going to be important. Have a set of boots that are going to be able to be your daily hikers on dry ground. Extra socks are going to be important. Change your socks when you get a chance. Take a break, have lunch, and change out your socks. It's going to increase your comfort, and it's going to give you a little bit more endurance for your hunt. Even maybe consider a pair of hip waders, because some of these places you might get into, you might appreciate having something a little bit higher than a knee-high boot. Plenty of options for warm weather, cool weather, rain, even snow possibly. Layers are always better than wearing something light and then one big heavy jacket. You want to make sure you have your orange hat, which is mandatory, and we suggest an orange vest or jacket. Now in the deer season, so the November season, you do have to have 2 articles of orange. But back to our layers. Synthetic against your skin is going to be key. A synthetic or pile type sweater or merino wool is excellent for a warmth layer, and then a good shell. And you can add layers, take layers off. If you find it's a warmer day and you're hiking quite a bit, you can take layers off, throw them in your day pack, and then put them back on. But never leave camp without your rain gear and enough layers. And always go into this thinking, what if you were to get turned around? You need to have enough with you to spend an unplanned night in the woods. We can't stress enough the importance of having a good survival kit and knowing how to use the items. So basics like matches and fire starters, mapping compass, a knife, a headlight and extra batteries and things like that. We have a comprehensive list in the link below and other videos that you can find on our website and on YouTube. We can help ourselves to be more physically prepared for our hunt by simple conditioning. Start walking, getting into a routine, some short hikes, uneven terrain, maybe carry some weight in a backpack. Start to condition yourself, and you'll feel a lot more prepared and confident when you step out on that first day of your moose hunt and you get off the beaten path. And I think that you're going to find much more success away from the crowds and away from the roads. Thanks for participating in Maine's Moose Hunter Education course. We hope that you found this resource valuable as you plan your next hunt, whether you have a permit for this year or you're looking forward to drawing a permit in the years to come.